welcome back. Later tonight, former President Trump is set to headline a rally in Georgia to support GOP candidates he's endorsed for office in the state. The event is his first public appearance after Arizona's Republican-led election review affirmed President Biden's victory in Maricopa County yesterday. Despite this, Trump continues to falsely claim that the report from cyber ninjas showed, quote, incomprehensible fraud and called for Arizona to decertify their 2020 election results. The former president's comments cap off a week of revelations that reiterate his efforts to undermine and overturn the election, all while knowing most of the fraud allegations he pushed were false. The New York Times uncovered newly released court documents that show the Trump campaign knew that the claims about fraud in voting machines was baseless. Yet Trump's lawyers went ahead with publicly airing the false claims in a press conference anyway. And the new book, Peril, by Bob Woodward and Robert Costa, outlines a memo drafted by a conservative lawyer who was working with Trump's legal team that included a plan for then Vice President Pence to overturn the election. All of this proving that, according to a Washington Post analysis, we're, quote, still learning about the depths of Trump's dishonesty. Joining me right now is the journalist of that piece, Philip Bump, national correspondent for the Washington Post. So, Philip, thanks for joining us. You know, how does the information uncovered this week really solidify that the former president wasn't really focused on the truth? He was focused on winning and getting his way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I would say it solidifies it simply because it was so solid even before that. What it does is it sort of fleshes it out. It adds more nuance and detail to it. A part of what we learned over the course of this week, including from the publication of the book Peril, is we learned, for example, that some of Trump's key allies, including Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, were presented with the, quote, evidence that Donald Trump had of fraud and dismissed it out of hand because obviously it's ludicrous, it's obviously contrived, and there's no actual real evidence of fraud. But we didn't know that Lindsey Graham had already weighed in and literally called it third-grade level evidence. We learned as well of this memo, this really, really striking memo, which is fundamentally a legalistic version of a coup. I mean, it really outlines how you can seize power by essentially ignoring what the Constitution says. We learned all these ways in which Trump's long battle to try and hold on to power once he actually lost the 2020 election, even though there were people around him who were anchored to reality, he just continued to press forward and ignore it.
You know, I want to read a little more from your piece on this GOP battle with Trump. And you write, quote, Trump used the power of his large, loud, and credulous base to tip the scales in his favor, forcing the Grahams, Pences, and Rep. Liz Cheney's to consider the costs of going not just against him, but against all of those supporters as well. Trump's dishonesty helped create a political army that he used bluntly. What environment does this create, and does that political army still exist today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an incredibly toxic environment, right? I mean, and we see it every single day. We see people who are rallying to Donald Trump's defense, treating him as a credible actor, which, of course, he isn't, as was well established, even before he ran for office in 2016. It was well established he would say pretty much anything if he thought it served his purposes. But now there is this huge mass of people who see you and I, who see people who work for mainstream media institutions as ourselves not credible because we don't fawn over Trump, because we don't treat what he says as real. We are seen as being non-credible, and so they operate in this sphere in which Trump is the person who's telling the truth, particularly about what happened in 2020. It's obviously not the case. But what it means is that for people like Lindsey Graham and Liz Cheney, they're now accountable to a base which believes the surreal ramblings of Donald Trump over reality itself. We saw that just recently in Arizona, and we see it every single day in the response that Trump generates politically.
If anybody wants to see it, they can just Google your name and the Washington Post. But you've written numerous fact-checking articles, literally point by point, debunking some of the comments that Trump has made regarding the audit in Arizona here. But do you think that the people who need to hear that are listening?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's really disheartening to do this work and to sit down and to say, hey, look, here is exactly what this, even if you want to treat this report as credible, which by itself, I mean, obviously it's a product of a bad faith effort to try and, cast doubt on the election itself. But even if you want to treat it as credible, what Donald Trump says it says is obviously not what it says. All you have to do is crack it open and look at it. But because Donald Trump just lies about things all the time and lies about these sorts of, these claims of fraud, you just can't make any headway because people don't want to believe that. They want to believe the election was stolen. They don't know anyone who voted for Joe Biden. They find it hard to believe anyone would vote against Donald Trump. And so they simply refuse to.
All right, Philip Bump, thank you so much for your time on this. We appreciate you coming on.